Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood with Hegwood Law Group, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens. I have a very special guest today. Kathryn Harrison is an author of a book that we find very interesting. She's going to tell us about, titled, When Grandma Has Dementia, How to Talk to the Kids. And welcome, Kathryn, to the show.
Thank you. Very nice to be here.
And so can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Sure. It's actually called Weeds in Nana's Garden, and it's a book that I created following our family's experience with my mom, who had early onset dementia. We had an interesting dichotomy of having my children being born and growing up as my mom progressed through early onset dementia. So it was as a byproduct of that experience that I created this book.
And I apologize because we got the name of the book is Weeds in Nana's Garden. Is Nana what your children called your mother?
Yes, exactly.
And so I think it's really important to have conversations with children with just the right amount of information that they need to know for their age. Did you find that was a difficult conversations to have with your children?
Yes, I mean, everyone who's experienced dementia knows that it's not something that you can hide from children. Everyone's impacted from it. So it's important for kids to understand what's happening because their loved one might be acting a bit differently than they were before and then changing. And so, you are looking for ways to talk to them about it so that they can understand what's going on as everyone's coping with the changes. Well, I found that at the time, sorry, these bad technical problems.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. And so I noticed that you set the story in a garden. Why did you do that?
So my mom had a lovely garden. Like that was one of her big things. They actually ran a bed and breakfast for many years, and the garden was a huge part of the experience for the guests that were in the garden or that were in the bed and breakfast. And my young daughter loved the garden, and as my mom progressed, she continued to walk in the garden with my mom. It was something that my daughter did with my mom. She was about 7 at the time when she noticed that their garden was changing because of my mom's dementia. Less was being done in the garden. Like she wasn't focused on it. My dad and I were focused on caring for mom, and the garden was getting neglected. So there were weeds in the garden, and it was my daughter that noticed that it was harder. Like her observation was, Mom, it's hard to find flowers in the garden. And we were talking about that. And then I tried to explain to her, just like we were saying, it is hard to talk about dementia. So I tried to explain to her that something was happening with Nana to cause the garden to be more full of weeds. And I tried to talk about the disease and that there was a disease in her brain that was affecting how she thought and how she remembered. And my daughter said, like the weeds in the garden. And I said, what do you mean? She's like, oh, the way we can't find the flowers because there's so many weeds. Nana can't find the memories. She can't find what to do because of the disease. And I was like, yes, that's exactly right. So it was her insightful observation that was the start of this book, actually.
Well, that's awesome. I'm always amazed at sometimes at how kids how they see things, and their insight, is so different from us usually as adults. And so and I believe that did you write and illustrate and publish the book?
Yeah, so while I was actually in art school, had a marketing degree, a career, and then I went to art school as sort of something that I always wanted to do as part of my actually therapy with dealing with mom. And so I was just coming off of finishing an art degree, so that allowed me to illustrate it as well. And then I really wanted to give back with the book. So every book we give, or every book that's purchased, contributes to the Alzheimer's Society of Canada. And after researching with publishing houses, the only way to do that would be to self-publish it. So that's why we decided to self-publish the book. But I wasn't alone at all. And one of the main contributors for the book, to help the book to speak to kids, was I was fortunate to have children of the age. And so I went to the classrooms. The teachers were of my children, and the teachers were very, very supportive. And I would give rough drafts of the book to the kids to look at and to talk about. And we had huge discussions with 3 different classrooms of kids. And that's what drove a lot of the book. And also the back of the book, there's questions and answers for kids about dementia. And those questions and answers were from those sessions with the kids.
Oh, that's amazing that the school was very receptive to, having you work, with the different ages. And so if I may be so personal to ask, at what ages were your children when you started having these conversations about your mom?
So my son was born when my mom was diagnosed. So, and my daughter was 3. So it was sort of probably about when my daughter was maybe 4 or 5. And as I talked about the garden observation, when she was more like 6 or 7. My book, Weeds in Nana's Garden, is really targeted for around the 5 to 9-year-old kids, sorry. I actually created another book with another woman named Jacqueline Gannett, which is a slightly younger skewed book called I Smile for Grandpa. And that book we did together. She's a personal social worker that works in care homes in Edmonton, Alberta, in also in Canada. And she wrote the book, and then we worked together to publish this other book.
Well, how is this one different than yours? What's the differences in the book?
Okay, yeah. So the second book has a grandfather figure instead of a grandmother figure. So that's one of the main differences. But also it's a little bit younger in its focus is a lot more about things that they can do together, and a little bit less about the relationship between the grandmother and the daughter and the granddaughter is in the first book. So the first book is a little bit more about intuitively looking at the relationship and how the relationship changes, and the girl helping care for the grandmother. And then the book, where is a little younger, is more about things that the kids can do with their loved one who has dementia.
Well, that sounds amazing. And so what made you decide to target this particular age group? Is it because of the age of your children?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a picture book, so the 2 books are focused on picture book age. I think the first book was partly related to my children and the fact that they really started to ask those deep questions around 7. So I wanted a book for that age group. And then the second book was because I know that they also, they are also, even when they're younger, affected. And, something that I know, again, people that have a loved one with dementia, having children around when there's dementia in the house adds so much benefit. And so the more the kids know what's going on, the more benefit you can have. And things like playing together and doing activities together and singing and dancing. And so.
And so do you find that, because obviously I was thinking that how young your mom must have been diagnosed for your kids to have been, very young. Do you find that, because I've got grandkids, so is it, I would assume that whatever age, whether they're grandchildren or children, is very appropriate for, to have those conversations. I noticed too that with my grandkids, 'cause it seems like forever since my kids were little, they look at things so differently than what my kids did, and how they see things. So I've noticed that I just noticed there's a difference in how they evaluate things. Your kids are, I'm assuming, are older now. Do you find that the younger kids still look at things kind of the same way? Do you think it's still, the parallel is still there? Does that
You
make
mean the
sense?
younger kids? You're talking about the younger kids today versus the younger kids
today. Yeah.
versus 10 years ago. Yeah, I mean, I think that younger kids today are still doing. I mean, there's obviously more time on a computer, but they're still playing in sandboxes, and they're still taking walks, and they're still dancing and singing. So those are the types of things that are focused on in the book that are still part of every young children's world, creating, coloring, crafts. They're still there, just balanced with internet stuff. So, yeah.
And so when you're telling someone that, hey, this is a book for your family, to talk to someone about, Alzheimer's or dementia, what do you tell them?
So these books, I think one of the things, and this actually goes back to your previous question, one of the things that I did as an illustrator for these books is I added things in the books to make the books more compelling to a child. So the illustrations have things like little squirrels that are doing things in the background. And there's like a side story in Weeds and Nana's Garden about fairies and what they're up to. And these books have these little things in them that the kids can look at on every page. In addition to hearing the story, the bigger story, and having the information, there's actually illustrations that hopefully they can find joy in and want to reread. And I have gotten feedback from recent parents that their kids love playing with that part of these books. So that helps to make them fun to read, not only just important to read.
Well, yeah, because if it's not fun to read, it makes it a lot more difficult to get them to read. And so,
yes, exactly.
That's awesome. And so why do you think it was important to have the conversation with your children, and that parents or grandchildren should have that conversation with children?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on this a little bit already, that you cannot hide it from them. They know that this particular loved one is acting differently than other adults. Sometimes kids can be kind of scared what's happening, because I know everyone's different that has a dementia disease, but often there's a lot of emotion or frustration that can come off as being scary to kids. So talking to kids can help them feel more comfortable. They know it's not them. They know that they can't catch this disease. It's not a contagious disease, which I know is probably a lot of discussion right now. So it's nothing that they need to worry about for themselves. But also, and then if they are feeling more comfortable, then they will connect more, and then they'll have these great interactions with their loved one, and they can color with them or they can dance with them. And, one thing also is the caregiver or the parent or the grandparent. We benefit so much from seeing these interactions, and from what you said, the insight. And I actually always used to talk about how much acceptance my children had about my mom's illness, because, I and my dad, and we were often, comparing, oh, this week she is doing this and last week she could do that. And we're always judging, and it's not helpful. And my kids would be like, what's the matter? Like, let's just dance, and let's just go for a walk. And they don't care what Nana's wearing, and they don't care, if she's not eating her dinner. Like, they don't care. So they're just accepting, this is it, this is fine. And that had a great impact on me. It helped me a lot. So I think having them around really helped me, as well as helped my mom and helped them. So.
Yeah. Well, I know that they have such a unique way of of seeing things, and two, my kids had said something to me. When you're growing up with certain things, you don't know any different. So there's not anything to compare to. And so, for like your children, they literally grew up with your mom having that diagnosis. So they don't know anything different. And so, for them, that's just their way of life. It's not something changing. And so, I think that a lot more families, are very similar to yours, where the kids are in the house, you've got that taking care of mom, raising children, things like that. So we're seeing this more and more. So I think it's really, really important to be having these conversations, and really having those age appropriate conversations, so that your conversation cannot grow over time. And so, well, I was very fascinated to hear that you had taking up art, which obviously you're very good at, and during this, is a way of kind of helping you. It's very important when you have someone that's been diagnosed with dementia to take care of your mental health, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm glad that you said that you had taken up art, because it gave you an outlet, something to help you, cope during the process. Because I think that a lot of people don't talk about that. We're very adamant, about caregivers taking care of themselves, and you got to take care of yourself first. You equate that to, airline attendants telling you to put your mask on first before you put the other mask on, and in my head, I'm thinking I got to take care of my kid first, kind of thing. But, it's really important. And I'm glad that you brought that up, and because so many people don't talk about the fact that you have to take care of yourself. And so, how's your dad doing?
He's doing very well. He actually had sorry, now I'm for some reason echoing. Anyway, he actually met a woman from his university days who also had her spouse with early onset dementia during the caregiving process, and they grew close as friends, supporting each other as they supported their spouses. And then when their spouses passed, they actually have remarried. So it's a bit of a romantic love story for them.
Good. That's
and
good.
I think that their respective spouses would be happy that was the outcome.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So
I was just going to comment a little bit on what you said about the therapy, and just to be openly vulnerable about it. Like when I was creating these illustrations, I was literally crying.
Yeah,
tears would be on the way, like, oh, that will add to the painting. But and why I want to say that is because it is something that is deeply difficult in many ways. And when we're caregiving, we keep a lot of that inside, because we're, like what you said, you're looking after the person in front of you. But yeah, finding that outlet was enabled me to, I think, finish this book. Like there was times where I actually didn't think I could, but I'm just so glad I did. Meeting wonderful people like you that are,
Yeah, well, I'm super glad you finished the book too. And so, and you're looking forward to book 3. Do you have an idea in your head of what book 3 is going to look like?
I'm not sure if there's going to be book 3. I'm trying to decide. Right now, I'm working with Alz Authors. I don't know if you've come across Alz Authors.
And not yet, but I'll be on the lookout for them.
It's a big online community of authors, and I'm on the management team. Yeah, we're an online community of authors, and we are sharing our stories. And as part of management, we publish new books, or don't publish, sorry, we promote new books. We promote books about Alzheimer's and dementia, and blogs, and help spread the word, because we feel that the stories that we have, sharing our experiences, helps people feel like they're not alone.
Yes, and yes. I think that's why support groups are so important during this time period, to have someone that knows what you've gone through, knows what you're going through, and just there saying, we're there, we appreciate it. And what can we do to help? So always a good thing. And so, well, Kathryn, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. I'm super excited about your books. And
thank you.
And so, yeah, we look forward to having those in the office and for our families. And so we'll definitely take care of that. And hopefully you'll be on again in the future. And take care.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.